Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Two Drink Maximum. I am Chase Baxter, one of your hosts.
I'm Shane Byerly, your other host.
We are very excited to introduce Season 2 to you. It's going to be a great season. That's right. Season 2 for you, from us to you.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great season. We've got lots of amazing guests, some wonderful things that we've talked about, some delicious drinks we've tried for this season, and just lots of really, really cool stuff. And we're super excited to have you along here for Season 2.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. We've got some fun guests, some fun surprises, so thank you for listening. For the Season 2 opener, though, we did want to come on kind of separately before the episode starts and kind of give you guys a little bit of a heads up on this episode. We were lucky enough to record this episode a few months ago, February 17th of 2023 to be exact, with our friend Tim Sexton. Tim talked about his incredible career in the film industry, his wonderful life, and he also spoke very frankly about his struggle, his ongoing battle with cancer. And we are very saddened to inform you that on May 22nd of 2023, Tim succumbed to that battle with cancer. He passed away. And we are devastated by his loss, and we are so sad. We miss him tremendously. But we wanted to just let you guys know that before the episode starts so that you have a bit of context and a bit of information before you begin the episode.
Correct. And Tim joined us after his wife, Nancy, came on the show, and he just enjoyed the show so much, and she enjoyed the experience that he wanted to come on and share his story with us. We also had a chance to talk with Tim before his passing, and he expressed, complete trust in us to edit this show to something that he would like and to tell the story that he wanted to tell. So we had absolute faith from him to share this story share this podcast, and we're really excited to be able to use it as a celebration of his life and the amazing experiences that he had.
Absolutely. So what follows is a fun, upbeat episode about Tim and his incredible life, but we also have a special postscript words from Tim himself at the end of the episode. So again, when the episode is over and you hear the music pick up, it will fade out, and then we have some more stuff after that. So please don't tune out after the end of what would be the regular episode.
So pour yourself a drink and join us and learn about the incredible human being that was Tim Sexton. So here's a cheers to you, Tim.
Cheers, Tim. We love you, buddy.
Welcome to another episode of Two Drink Maximum, the show over two drinks and nothing more. We are very happy about today's episode. We have a wonderful guest in Tim Sexton, co-owner of the Muse Rooms here in Hollywood, California, and producer of such films as something we've previously covered, the Water of Life film.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming out today, Tim.
I'm happy to be here.
So right away, we want to know, what are we drinking and why?
Well, I've been a big fan of single malt Scotch whiskey for well over a decade. And today I brought one of my favorite bottles I discovered during the pandemic. I spent way too much money on whiskey during the pandemic.
I think a lot of people did.
Yeah, you are not alone, my friend. Yeah.
This one in particular is a single cask independent bottling of Glengoyne, which is a distillery right on the border of the Highlands and Lowlands in Scotland. And it's an 11-year. It was aged in Pedro Jimenez sherry butt. And
what was that?
It's a Pedro Jimenez sherry butt.
Okay.
And it's really, really tasty.
Let's give it a try.
Here we go.
Cheers, gents.
That is good.
It's also quite strong. It's 56.3% alcohol by volume.
It is, and that is why, to
You put
everyone's chagrin, before we began, I cut mine with a little bit of water, which
was
apparently
like
a little bit.
It was like a scene from The Sopranos. We watched it in horror.
made the room
Chase
silent.
watered it down, and the whole room went, "Oh, Manon, this guy over here." What are you
Shameful.
an audible removal of oxygen from the room.
Yeah.
It's delicious. It's very good.
But it's good.
It kind of starts off with notes of Highland because you got the honey and vanilla on the back, but then that Pedro Jimenez kicks in, and then you've got kind of like white pepper on the finish. It's a very nice Scotch, dude. So thank you for sharing.
It's really, really tasty.
I'm going to use what I learned last time. I'm detecting some oaky notes.
Oaky notes. There you go. Yeah.
On the finish.
Hints of oak.
On the finish.
Previous guest of the show, Greg, said that if you don't know what you're talking about, just say oaky notes, and everybody will be like, "Ah, yeah."
And I do not know what I'm talking
For
about.
sure. But we're also drinking out of some unique glasses as well.
Correct.
Yeah, these are Glencairn whiskey glasses, and they are specifically shaped to help the nose of the whiskey be concentrated so that you can smell it better. And and it holds a good dram of whiskey in the right way for you to drink it.
Yeah, I mean, just like there's all different types of wine glasses, there's different types of glasses for other alcohols, and the Glencairn glasses for whiskey specifically.
Yeah, it's kind of the old standard, and so you'll see just about every distillery will have their personalized or monogrammed label on their glasses, and I brought 3 different ones tonight, but Chase is drinking out of an Ardnahoe, which is the newest distillery on Isla. And Shane actually has a whiskey glass from the Good Spirit Bar in Budapest.
Nice.
Which is really fantastic.
I knew
whiskey
this
bar.
glass tasted like it was imported. You could just tell when you put your lips on it. You're like, this isn't American.
It tastes far away.
I knew it.
And then I've got a Glenallachie glass, and Glenallachie is a distillery in Speyside.
Nice.
So why Scotch?
It is one of the most diverse and unique spirits out there. I think there are more. There's a larger variety and a much larger range of flavor profiles and styles in Scotch whiskey than any other spirit around the world. But what's great is that the attention to Scotch whiskey, and it's been growing year over year for just about a decade. It's gotten very, very popular. It's actually kind of bled out into that approach, I should say, has kind of permeated out into the other spirits. And so you're starting to see like tequilas that are aged 13 years and longer, and where that just wasn't something that anyone even thought about before. So so it's interesting. And we were my wife and I were just on vacation in Finland over Christmas, and we discovered how many insane, incredible gins there are in Scandinavia across all those countries. And it's the same way that Scotland has, 130 plus distilleries for Scotch whiskey. The Scandinavian countries have probably not that many, but they have a lot of gin.
Yeah. See, we were on a previous episode, we were talking about how you've never met an unattractive Swedish person. They don't exist. And so maybe that's their secret. Maybe it's the gin. Yeah.
Could be.
Maybe we're onto something.
Could be. Together.
Well, so full disclosure, Tim and I have known each other for quite some time. And so obviously we share a passion for Scotch, but your Scotch drinking habits have changed in the last couple of years for particular reasons. And, and we wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. So what's kind of been going on with you? I know what's been going on with you, but for the listeners, what's kind of been going on with you recently?
Well, first I'll just state that I am currently 44, and so most people, would agree that's not terribly old. But when I was 42 in January of 2021, right in the heart of the pandemic, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And it was a pretty big shock because it's not something that I would ever have guessed, anticipated, or thought could happen to me, especially at my age. And it was it came about in a pretty weird way, but effectively the latter part of 2020, I started getting tired a lot easier. I started, losing energy and to the point where I was taking 3-hour naps in the middle of the day. And it finally got to the point where right after Christmas, I saw my general practitioner, and I was explaining, everything and saying, this just can't be. It's not that I'm just another lazy sack during the pandemic not doing anything, which is what I initially thought. But it turned out that that was the issue, and the way we found out is that when she did these blood tests, they found out that my hemoglobin level in my blood, which should normally be between 14 and 18, was 5. Yeah. And so the night after that office visit, that doctor visit where they did the blood tests, I got a call from the attending physician at the ER and said, you need to come in right now. And I had 3 units of blood transfused. And that kind of started the process of trying to figure out how in the hell did I lose so much blood when, and not to get too TMI, but the normal signs, which would be in your stool or there are certain signs that you look for when you have internal bleeding. Right. And I had none of them. And the reason was because it was such a slow leak. All of the blood I was losing was either getting digested or reabsorbed into my system.
Oh,
so it wasn't, there
Yeah.
were no signs. So it was a real, everybody was a bit perplexed by it. And so anyways, I ended up getting a colonoscopy and an endoscopy 2 weeks later. And when they did the endoscopy, they found the tumor. Wow. And from there, it was just a question of, the details. And the details ended up being that it had spread to my liver as well. And so, so I had to start treatment in February of 2021. And it's been kind of an ongoing thing since then. And so it's with stage 4 cancer, that basically means that the cancer cells, instead of just being localized in one area like a tumor, they've actually started leaching out into your bloodstream and spreading throughout your body. And once that happens, the unfortunate thing is that those cancer cells are so microscopic, it's nearly impossible to eradicate them from your bloodstream. So you will always have cancer in your body.
Right.
It's just a question of whether it will coalesce into a tumor again or show up in other parts of your body. So I will, for the remainder of my life, I will always be in some form of treatment. So it's a really strange new normal for me and for us, for me and my wife. But we've been trying to find the balance. And so it's really tricky because certain chemo treatments cause really severe side effects, others not so much. But you try to figure out ways where, you can still travel and you can still find ways to enjoy life. And so, it's been interesting. It's been a roller coaster.
Yeah, well,
It
for
sounds
sure.
like it.
But, one of the reasons why I was so excited when you wanted to come on the show was the amount of grace and optimism that you have displayed since your diagnosis. It truly has been inspiring for me. And I think it's important for people to kind of hear it. So I want to just kind of start after you get the diagnosis and the kind of the shock wears off of it and it sets in that this is a reality. What goes through your head in that moment? I mean, once again, after the shock.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think it's the, for me, there's definitely a stigma, not just with cancer, but more specifically when you hear stage 4. Yeah. And a lot of people that love Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I wouldn't dare talk to a stage 3. I wouldn't even listen to a stage 3. Yeah.
That is like, there is that additional stigma when it's stage 4 because it's the end of the line. It doesn't get worse than that. Other than
in case there are people who don't know, the stage 4 is the last stage. Right?
Yeah. So and the funny thing too is I didn't know. I knew that my grandfather died of prostate cancer. I knew that my grandmother was able to get through her breast cancer, and she just celebrated 100th birthday last summer.
Oh, wow.
So there is there is hope, and and the technology, the science, the medicine, it's improving exponentially. Right. In our lifetime, which is a really great thing for anyone that is diagnosed nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's definitely still. When you get that news that it's stage 4, your immediate thought is, well, that's it. Mm-hmm. I'm done for. And it's, that was the initial part of that initial shock, like you were saying. But then, there's one of the newer forms of treatment is called immunotherapy. Mm-hmm. And immunotherapy, essentially, first of all, you have to have a certain genetic marker in order to qualify to get it. And I happened to have that. So that was really good news for me.
Yeah, it's a stroke of good luck for sure.
The unfortunate thing is that the scale by which they test that genetic marker, I kind of tested off the charts. And so what happens then is it works so well over a 7-month period after I started treatment. The cancer was completely gone from my stomach and my liver, but I almost lost my colon because it basically attacked my colon too.
Right, yeah.
And I had full-blown colitis. I was in the hospital for 2 days. I had to be on steroids to help, my colon get back to, a somewhat normal place. And so because of that, even though the immunotherapy worked so well to eradicate the cancer, I can't really consider it as an option again until it's like the only option.
Sure.
But I guess back to your question, which was, we got that news that that I qualified for the immunotherapy.
Yeah.
And so that gave us a lot of hope. And so Nancy and I really kind of shifted our focus from, the dread and the negative aspect of it to, I'm going to get past this. I'm going to continue on, all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of where we lived, all the way through that treatment. And there's so many other things that go along with it. I think over the course of those first 7 months, I lost track of how many times I had to go to the ER for low potassium, for all these different things that get affected.
Reservation.
Yeah,
more or less. Yeah, it's
all the doctors were on first name basis.
Yeah, when you start to go in and they're like, "Oh, hey again," and you're just like, "No."
Did you hear that story about Tony Hawk when he busted his? Tony Hawk was doing Tony Hawk things and he was skating in his half pipe, and he broke his femur and his femur was like sticking out of his leg.
God.
And he lives out like somewhere deep in the hills because he has to build this half pipe in his backyard. He had to beg the ambulance to take him to St. Joe's in Burbank because and it was like a 90-minute drive, but he goes, I know the entire trauma staff.
Yeah, they know me.
Because I've been injured so many times. They know me. I know them. Like, please, I understand it's not the closest, but take me there. So you're in good company if you know some ER staff by first name basis at least. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Kaiser has taken good care of me so far, but it's but anyways, just to kind of catch everybody up, I went into remission in August of 21.
I will drink to that.
Congratulations.
Hold on.
wait.
It was very good news, and we celebrated that good news. But as I mentioned, with stage 4, it's always inside you, and because of that, there's always a chance it's going to come back.
Right.
So then in January of last year of 22, the scan that I got at that point did show activity again in the area where the original tumor was. And so that was really tough because I thought that I was past it. I thought that I was, good for at least a couple years, maybe.
Like you nuclear bombed it, and it's it's gone. Yeah,
and that just wasn't the case. And so I had to go back on chemo, full dose chemo, and it was effectively the same chemo treatment that I had been on the prior year, but without the immunotherapy. It only did so much. And it got to the point where we got to the summer and the efficacy had dropped off. And so the activity, the cancer activity, and I say that because it wasn't a tumor again. It was just lighting up on the scan.
Yeah.
But that activity had increased. And so we tried a completely different chemo starting in June, and the best that it got to the latter half of last year was that I was stable between scans, meaning it hadn't increased, but it hadn't gotten better. And that's still considered good news because that means that the treatment is working at least to that point.
Right.
But then I got my scan in December and it increased again. So at that point, we were at a crossroads of, do we now try a third type of chemo or do we look at other options? And the other options were clinical trials or radiation. And so clinical trials, There's a lot out there. Unfortunately, most of them have to do with immunotherapies, and I can't really dabble into that right now. And the one that kind of matched up was in New York, and these can be a year or longer. And we were like, I'm not moving to New York for a clinical trial that may or may not do anything for me.
Right.
So the clinical trial option was off the table. And then we had a consultation with the radiologist, and he kind of explained that because my cancer has not metastasized back to my liver, meaning it has not spread outside of the original tumor area, that I could do radiation treatment. And so after learning more about it, we decided that's probably the best course of action right now. And so I just started that on Wednesday, and I do it for 5 weeks, Monday through Friday. And along with that, I take a chemo pill called Xeloda, and hopefully that'll kind of get rid of whatever is going on right now, and then we'll go from there. So
yeah, Xeloda sounds like a guy the mob hires to like take care of business.
Call in Xeloda.
Yeah, he'll get the job done. So yeah, I feel yeah.
You mentioned balance earlier, how you've had to find a new normal in life, with the persistence of, I mean, bad news. It's bad news. All around, with the persistence of that popping up in your life. Like you get these highs of like, oh, maybe we're going to curve it away, but that like, this is a persistent thing that's going to be with you with your whole life. How do you find the joy in existence now? Like knowing that this is going to be a shadow hanging over you like that? And what has that balance like looked like for you, reclaiming your life and living a life you want to live despite all the things that are affecting you?
It's really acceptance is a big part of it, which is super hard because, like I said, I feel like I'm too young for this. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't have to be thinking about the end of my life. I shouldn't have to be thinking about, these kind of big philosophical questions. It's also really, I had been saying frustrating, but someone I've been talking to said it's more than that, isn't it? And I said, yeah, it's infuriating.
Yeah.
Because there's so many questions that are unanswered, even with all the science and medicine that's available. They still don't know why cancer happens. They still can't quite pinpoint, with accuracy why it occurs and how it occurs and who it occurs to. And so it's that part of it is I try my best not to dwell on it, because when I do, it just infuriates me, because it's so frustrating when you don't have an answer to that big question.
Yeah.
And so,
and not only do you not have an answer, it feels like we should by now.
You would think,
right? You would think, right?
Yeah. So I have to, I try to let that go and focus on the things that I can understand and that there are answers to. And so, once you kind of get a grasp on, well, this treatment's going to affect me this way, and it's going to be this effective, or it should be, and if it's not, then these are the options. And there are those things that you can know. And so once you kind of settle into all of that, and that's where your focus is more, then you can find, well, what are my options when I want to do this, or how can we approach, wanting to, travel, that kind of stuff. And so it's been nice to be able to go to my oncologist and say, listen, we have this big bucket list trip planned over Christmas, and I want to enjoy it to the fullest. Can I just take off the month of December from treatment?
Yeah.
And she, she said, yeah. And so there are those, you have that option. And then it's just, finding that balance. Like I said, it's finding the balance between what you have to do and what you can, you have a little wiggle room on. So,
yeah.
And then, it's diet is interesting because there's times where I feel really motivated to eat super healthy, cut sugar out of my, diet and that kind of thing. And then there's other days where I can't wait to have some Taco Bell, knowing that it's the worst god awful stuff I could be putting in my body. But
Yeah.
it's
But boy,
still
it's
delicious.
Yeah.
it really is.
Yeah.
No knocks to Taco Bell. It's still amazing.
What's your go-to Taco Bell order?
Oh, dude.
Like you're pulling up through the drive-through.
Well,
it's 11:36 at night.
I was going to say it's 2:34 in the morning. You've arrived at the Taco Bell.
Yeah.
It's, I recently, this is so silly, but I just recently discovered the cheesy gordita crunch.
Yeah, dude, that's my answer. The cheesy gordita crunch.
I just had no idea that there was that extra sauce on it.
You've been sleeping
It's
on
so
it, man.
good.
Yeah.
But
Don't
then,
sleep on that cheesy gordita crunch.
But then, I typically would get a chicken chalupa supreme.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
maybe a chicken quesadilla.
That is a respectable order right there. I like it. And I do love that Taco Bell, it seems like maybe it was pre-pandemic, maybe not. I don't know. But in the last couple years, they have absolutely just leaned into their marketing campaign is basically you're high, we're open, swing by.
Their marketing campaign is we don't give a fuck. We got your food.
Yeah.
That's all Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Like, what? I need cheese and meat and some bread. Yeah, here you go. We slapped it all on a plate. Welcome to Taco Bell.
There's I hate doing this, but I'm going to do it anyways. There's a really great comedian that I love named Chris Porter, and he has a special from I don't know. I want to say 8 years ago maybe called Ugly and Angry. And you can look it up on Amazon or whatever and watch it. It's really, really funny. He's the type of comedian that's just angry at everything and he just bitches about everybody and it's cathartic.
Sounds
in
like
a
my
way.
type of guy.
Yeah, it's cathartic in a way. But he's talking about Taco Bell and he says, there was a newspaper article that came out about Taco Bell saying that their meat is only 50% meat. And Taco Bell's response was, nope, it's 80. He's like, that's the kind of honesty I respect.
Yeah, exactly.
No. If you're going to tell us about the meat we don't have, it's 80%, not 50%.
Yeah. What's that other 20%? You don't care.
I don't know.
We
It's
all
delicious.
know it. Yeah.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
It might be horse.
So is there anything else that what shifted kind of in your life where it's like, I want to start focusing on these things? And adversely, was there anything that you were like, you know what, in hindsight, like looking back now, or with the information I have, this is less important than I thought it was. Like what kind of got cut out? Of your life?
Extrapolate Shane's
And
question.
I don't mean like sugar in my diet. I mean
No,
emotionally
What-
or
yeah, absolutely.
How did this shift your perspective on existence?
Yeah.
Oh, no, dude, that's
the question.
a spot on question because it really, for me, it did. There is so much that we focus too much of our time on as just in our society today that doesn't directly affect us. It doesn't help us in any way. It doesn't really take away anything from our day-to-day lives. And yet we spend hours a day focused on stupid shit that just doesn't matter.
Yes.
And I have definitely, my perspective on life has shifted where I don't give those things any time anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't allow them to, affect me, emotionally in any way. I don't give them any time or credence because, there's too much stupid drama that just doesn't matter. And it's really, it can be so distracting and it can prevent everyone from being able to focus on what really matters. And I focus more on the things that are most important to me and to us, me and my wife. And I really try not to get distracted by petty things.
So do you have no fucks to give, or you give all the fucks now?
No, God, I haven't thought about it in that context, Chase. I would say that one of the places where you tend to get distracted by petty stuff is with family, and so I would say that with family, I have definitely kind of refocused my my energy with them, where I try to refocus everyone else to say, hey, listen, like we have a good thing here. Like there's no reason to get upset with each other over this thing or that thing. It's silly. Like don't waste your time on it because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so it's without getting into specifics, but that's kind of a general approach now, across the board, not just with family, but just with people in general. I don't, I try not to get distracted and focus on things that don't really matter. I know that's pretty ambiguous, but
No, but everybody has a different situation.
It's ambiguous, but it's also a profoundly difficult thing for people to like wrap their minds around, because you exist in a world where so many things are declared to you as being important.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really have to examine, like, what do I value? What do I care about? What is important to my existence as a being?
Yeah.
And when you're really forced to look at those things, it's fascinating what people like gravitate towards and what they deem important.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, I would say my situation has certainly shifted my priorities too. Shane, you mentioned, we like to travel, and part of the reason is that we're proud dinks. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it.
That sounds like an insult. So your words, not mine, but
no, it does sound like it. But dink is a double income, no children.
Okay, yes.
So and then dink wad,
fun people.
Yeah, dink wad is even better. Double income, no children with a dog.
Nice. There you
and
go.
so we are very proud dinkwads, and so that also.
So are Angela and I, but I'm not going to go home and call her a dinkwad. That's just not going to happen.
You don't want to look at my lovely dinkwad of a wife.
Hey, babe, you look like a dinkwad. Get over here. No, sorry. Go ahead.
But that situation has afforded us the opportunity to travel quite a bit, and it's the thing that we love the most in life, and so we're fortunate to have all of the kind of material type things that we have wanted in life. So now the income that we do have, we typically try to spend on travel.
So what's the next dream destination for you?
Well, we actually will be going to Scotland in July. I've already been. I went for my 40th birthday and it was fantastic. Hey. But going to be going with some other good guys, and but I think New Zealand is on the list. Nancy really wants to take me to Japan. I have not been to Japan.
Wow.
She has.
Wow.
And then
I hope that's Japanese.
It is.
Okay.
and then I think just exploring more of Europe. We only had a day, not even a full day in Amsterdam, and that city is incredible. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to going back there at some point.
Nice. Well, for those of us who can't go to Scotland at the moment, we can at least go to Scotland in a glass as we refill ourselves for another drink. So we'll be right back in just a moment with our second beverage. See you in a bit. Thank you so much for listening today to the show. And if you want to keep up with us, please follow us on Instagram at 2 Drink Maximum. And if you'd like to talk to us, maybe recommend a guest, or if you'd like to see your email read on the air, please email us at 2drinkmaximum@gmail.com. Thanks so much. Cheers. We're back with our second pour here with Tim Sexton. So continuing on with our conversation. So Tim, you have quite a storied career, which started as one of my favorite jobs, a cool job. You were a film projectionist.
A what?
I was, yeah. So I went to school at Purdue University in Indiana, which is also my home state. And about halfway through college, I got a job at the movie theater, the 10-plex.
Yeah.
Good, rich, quality theaters.
Nice.
A small Midwest chain with about 30 theaters. So they had a 10-plex, and I got a job there just as, general concessions, usher, whatever.
You got to work your way up to film.
I did have to work my way up, yeah. But what was really great about that theater is that almost all the employees were huge film nerds. So there was a lot of opportunities to talk about the movies, and we Thursday nights, before opening night of a new movie on Friday, Thursday nights we'd get all the cans in with the film because this was before digital projection. Yeah. So
kids' films used to be projected on 35 millimeter. It was not a digital file you could play on your phone.
No, it was.
It's like Scotch tape with a movie on it.
Yeah, pretty much. It was little sprocket holes.
It was true 35 millimeter film. And so we would get the new films in, and we would have to build them because when they were all put together on a platter, they were as much as 4.5 feet wide. So, it's a lot of physical film that you have to go through for a 2-hour movie. And so once once they were put together, we had to QC them, which meant we had to watch them after hours.
Quality control is what QC stands for.
Yeah.
But
And,
also free movie to watch.
Yeah.
yes. And it also afforded us the chance to maybe partake in some activities that weren't necessarily allowed in the Goodrich Quality Theater handbook, employee handbook.
How spicy were these activities?
Usually it was just a group on the roof smoking weed,
okay.
and then also, beer in the theater while we watched the
medium
movies.
spicy.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So yeah, that lended to very, very fun first viewings of movies like The Matrix. But anyways, so it was just a great place to work and enjoy movies. And then I was given the chance to learn projecting and the job of a projectionist.
Which in this town is a union position. I mean, it's not in other parts of the country, especially when film projection was the standard. You could just have young kids like yourself do it at that point, but it is a very technically involved job,
It is.
right? It's that you can't just have someone walking off the street and do it.
Yeah,
So walk us through, like, you had to assemble it. But once the thing was assembled, there was still, like, you weren't just sitting on your butt the whole time. You had to
what's the
run
process?
No, yeah. So in a 10-plex, you have a set where all 10 theaters start over the course of like an hour, maybe a little bit longer. And it's really kind of an interesting puzzle to put together because movies are all different lengths. So you've got certain, kids' movies are 90 minutes, and a number of other, comedies. There are certain movies that are almost always going to be right around that 90-minute mark. But then you've got dramas and then you've got like Titanic, that's insane.
Yeah, and then you've got James Cameron films.
Yeah.
Or every other movie coming out today is 3.5 hours long.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you had those types of movies, it could get really tricky as far as figuring out the timing of when all the movies would start. And there were certain times where you had to start one and then literally run down all the way to the other end of the building to start the next one because you only had a 5-minute period in between start times. And so that was always interesting. But back when I was a projectionist in college, there were kind of two standard projectors. There were the Century projectors and the Christie projectors. And Centuries is what I learned on. And those are the kind of old school, tried and true, built to last projectors. Christie's were typically a little bit newer. So I had to use those from time to time, but I always preferred the Centuries because they just felt like they were built to last and they weren't going to fail. And so, you have to, thread the film through the projector from one platter to another. It's hard to explain, but I'll do my best. So when you build the film on the platter, the start of the film is in the middle, and it goes through what's called a brain. And the brain is a number of rollers that the film goes around, and then it goes out the middle and goes to the projector. So as the film goes along, it feeds from the middle of the big round spool of film, and as there's more space, it gives static electricity the chance to pull the film towards the middle.
Yeah.
And if that happens and it wraps around the brain, that's when you see that classic bubbling on the screen and the film melts.
It literally melts,
because the xenon bulb in the projector is
so hot.
friggin' hot.
So hot, yeah.
And so
hot right now.
It's super hot. So anyways, that was one of those kinds of things that you had to deal with.
Yeah.
And then another really crazy situation is, as an example, when Star Wars Episode 1 came out, we got 5 prints of it, but we decided to show it in 9 theaters. So how do you do that? Well,
oh man,
as the film goes from the platter through the projector, instead of going back to another platter that's based at that projector, you actually have rollers along the ceiling.
Oh man,
going to the next projector, and you just basically run the film through 3 different projectors. And that is just, if it's not done exactly right, that's just a
terrifying.
recipe
That's a
for
recipe
disaster.
for disaster. Yeah, my God.
That's-
But you pulled it off and nothing went wrong?
If I recall, nothing went wrong, but I don't know.
The beers and the rooftop beers
Right.
might have clouded some of those memories. Yeah.
But I think the funniest thing that typically would happen though is when we would have two different films showing in the same theater. So like in the morning we'd show a kids film for the first two showings, but then in the evening it would be whatever. And sometimes that whatever could be like a rated hard R,
Eyes wide shut
horror movie.
Yeah.
Or something, equally disturbing.
Right.
And so if you were in a rush and you weren't paying attention and you threaded the horror movie for the sold out kids show first thing in the morning, the best part of it is that the parents don't get the hint from the trailers. They allow their children to watch the trailers for all of these rated R movies, not thinking like, maybe this is a sign that this isn't the right film.
Yeah.
And then
they shouldn't be advertising. Yeah.
Then they get pissed at us when the movie starts and it's not the right film.
Yeah.
So granted, at the end of the day, it's the projectionist's fault for not showing the right movie.
So did you ever have that issue?
I didn't, but I was there for it when someone else made the mistake.
That's what I say when I make a mistake too. It wasn't my fault, but I was there for it.
I know a guy. What? Okay, if you remember that clearly, what were they supposed to show, and what did they show?
I don't remember exactly, but from the timing, like the time period, let's just say the Rugrats movie was supposed to play.
Yeah.
But the comedy spinoff of I Know What You Did Last Summer with Chris Evans. It was something like where they use like the titles of a bunch of those movies.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. All I can think of off the top of my head is that
I just think Not Another Teen Movie.
Not Another Teen Movie is what I'm thinking of. Yeah, but I can't
was
think
probably
of it.
it was something like that.
Okay.
It actually probably was that movie. And if you remember the opening scene, I think it had something to do with the girl masturbating in bed.
Yeah,
and
that's the one. Yeah.
So it's, and there was no.
And there were poor people in the audience going, I don't remember Rugrats starting like this.
Yeah. Man, these Rugrats have gotten more mature.
Nickelodeon is going hard.
My God.
Yeah.
So
listen, I could tell you all kinds of stories, but that was the start of my storied career, as you said, Shane.
Well, before we move off film projection, I do want to ask, hypothetical scenario. We live in Burbank, so the Burbank Theater calls and they're like, we put film projectors back in. We need a part-time guy. Yeah. Saturday mornings from like 10 to 4. We need a guy who knows project. Could you still do it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like muscle memory.
It's like riding a bike.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Well, if you need a film projectionist, call Tim. But okay.
Yeah.
So you move on from film projection. You're still in Chicago, so eventually you move out here.
Indianapolis. Yeah. I actually was very fortunate. So after I graduated from Purdue, which by the way was December of 2001, so it was right after 9/11, and there was just no job market at all. So I moved home, and I actually got a job as an assistant manager at the same theater that I had been riding my bike to since I was like 14. And so I worked there for a time. I want to say like 6 months. No. I'm sorry, a year and 6 months. And then
he's like, no, I mean a decade.
47 years.
But I actually approached the district manager and said I was interested in moving out to California and if I could transfer as a movie theater manager. And he said, yeah, I'll put you in touch with somebody. And so I had like a 45-minute phone interview with this guy, and it was with Regal Cinemas. And next thing I knew, at the end of the phone call, he's like, "Can you be out here in 3 weeks?" And so I was one of the rarities where I actually had a job to come to out here instead of just having to move out and hope for the best. And so I ended up being the house manager at the Valencia 12 Theater up in Santa Clarita. And
shout out to the Valencia 12.
Yeah,
Is it still there?
I believe so, and it's actually it's one of the few theaters in town that has a true film IMAX theater.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a pretty cool theater to work at for that reason. But I was actually only there about 9 months, and then I started temping. Actually, you know what? The first temp job I had was with Hustler Video. So that was interesting.
What did you do for them?
I was
Star.
Star.
not
The
quite.
secret files of Tim Sexton.
I actually was hired for a project to update all of their files to
God.
comply with new federal regulations, which meant that they had to have,
You somehow found the most boring, unexcited job at Hustler.
you know what? It's hilarious that you say that
Data
because
entry.
that's what you would think.
Oh.
But my counterpart in that project, he actually had to watch every single release and code the scenes for how many men, how many women, the sexual acts that they performed. And it got to the point where he would call me and he would be like, dude, get over here. You got to see this. And
You got to tell me what this is.
I would go over go over to his office and he'd have a scene playing and he'd be like, dude, check out the view from this house. Can you believe how awesome that is? Do you think that's the Mediterranean? Do you think that's France?
He's not even focused
You're
anymore.
missing the point, man.
That was the point for him, though.
He was so numb to the
What do you think the
sex
property value
aspect.
is in this scene?
Yeah. You see that rug? You think
That's
it's
a
important?
wonderful topiary in the background.
He was so numb to it. He just didn't care about that anymore. But every Friday while I was there, the assistant to the president of Hustler Video, and this is not Larry Flint.
Mm-hmm.
Larry Flint owned all of Hustler, right? But Hustler Video was
It's a subsidiary.
Yeah.
So
So
after like the 80s, he was just making money.
the assistant to the president every Friday would walk around the entire building with a cart full of DVDs and was just like, take what you want, because they were leftovers from like their sales department, like mailings. And
What year was
This was 2004.
Yeah. See, the DVD market in the entire film
It's
industry
still,
was
yeah.
still going strong
Right.
at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
They were throwing away DVDs. They were
Everybody
making so
gets a
many of them.
stocking stuffer.
No
yeah.
Blu-rays yet, and to that point,
Is that what
so this
is that
was
a title of one of the DVDs?
no, but this was the fall.
Stocking Stuffer 3.
This was the fall of that year leading into the holidays. And so by the time, like the first time that she brought this cart around, I grabbed like 2 of the DVDs because I was like, I don't know what's normal. And she was like,
I don't want to grab nothing.
She
I don't want to be
I don't want to be
rude.
rude. Yeah.
she was like, oh, well, if you're going to watch that one, you got to see this one and this one. And I ended up going home with like 8 DVDs the first week.
Yeah.
Well, these two are really connected narrative.
Yeah. The plot line, you're just the plot thread
You
of
really
this
want
whole
to know what
series.
happens to the plumber.
Yeah.
And you can't without the second video.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, so by the time I go home for Christmas to Indiana, I have a duffel bag, and I'm over at my buddy's place, and
Poor
there's like
sweet man. I promise all of this is not mine.
Yeah.
there's like 7, 8 of us around the big kitchen table, and I'm like, all right, guys, it's Christmas time, and I just unzip the bag, dump them on the table.
Hey, hang on. To be clear, so when you said 7 or 8 of us, you're friends, not your family, I imagine, right? Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Dad, I think this one
yeah,
speaks
Grandma.
to you.
Yeah. Wrap DVDs under the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the best part was the reaction, because everybody did the most stereotypical double take you've ever seen.
Yeah.
It was a glance back up and then a realization of holy shit, this is the mother lode.
Yeah.
And
you
I was
dumped
like,
it on a table like a drug dealer, like Pablo Escobar. Yeah.
it was hilarious, man. And then to cap off that part of the story, I got invited to the Hustler Christmas party at the Millennium Biltmore downtown.
It was called Jingle Balls.
God, I hope so.
Not quite. But my favorite memory from that evening was when Larry Flint did get up on stage to address everyone. The disdain that the employees had for that man was so severe that they did not wait to start. They served the salads before he started his speech, and all you could hear during his speech was clang, 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 because everybody's eating their salads and they just don't give a shit.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Well, it's not a party for Hustler unless priority is given to tossing salads.
Yeah, there you go.
There it is.
Zing. Yeah.
And then probably the funniest thing about me working temporarily for Hustler was that my next paying gig was at the Academy Awards the following February. And a very dear friend of mine and mentor, Randy Haberkamp, who's the programs director at the Academy, he offered me the chance to work on the Academy Awards. So I was in the credentials department.
That's awesome.
And there was 8,000 credentials that have to be processed for everyone from the union guys building the sets on the stage to media people to even the celebrities, like the nominees and the presenters and everybody. And so that was a really, really interesting time. I got to meet a lot of really interesting people. And then the day of the Academy Awards, I was asked to be part of the host committee. So I was full tux on the red carpet.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
I remember that it was really surreal, but it didn't really hit me until I literally bumped into Leonardo DiCaprio, like shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
And I realized it was him, and I had to step aside for like 2 minutes and just be like, holy shit,
Yeah.
this is insane.
Let me take
crazy.
a breather. Let me take a lap here. Yeah.
And then my buddy and I were supposed to be in the press room handing microphones to reporters to ask questions of the winners. And the guy that was managing that press room had decided that he didn't want guys doing that. He wanted women in gowns. So, yeah. Because, sexism.
Yeah, I mean, basically what that man was saying.
Yeah. And so, anyways, we didn't really have a job at that point. Mm-hmm. So what we did is we just hung out at the open bar right where everyone comes from the stage to enter the press area. And we just watched every celebrity presenter and winner come off the stage. And it was totally nuts.
I couldn't imagine so, because that's like right after they walk off the stage, like they're in like a buzz. I don't mean like an alcoholic. I just mean like they are literally like, that could be the peak of their career right there, and it's like they got to take a lap like, whew, let me hold on a minute,
Yeah, and this was I want to say this was the year the thing I remember most was walking up the stairs from the red carpet right behind Cate Blanchett, and she had this gorgeous, huge canary yellow dress on that year. And I remember, I think some of the winners that year were Clint Eastwood, Natalie Portman. I'm trying to remember who else. It was 2005. So was that Black Swan for Natalie Portman?
Too early for Black Swan.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe she was a presenter. I don't remember. But anyways, it was,
2005 would have been like Star Wars, like the last of the prequel Star Wars movies ish.
Oh, so maybe she was a
Yeah.
presenter because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, that was a pretty fun experience. And then I think 2 weeks later, I got my first temp gig at DreamWorks Animation.
Wow.
And then that started my 16, 17-year run at the studios. So I worked as a senior level executive assistant at DreamWorks Animation, Paramount, and Warner Brothers.
Nice. And I mean, to be clear, you work for some big name folk. I mean, not to bury the lead, but you work for Katzenberg. He's a pretty big power player here. So.
Yeah. I was actually a full-time floater initially at DreamWorks Animation, working for him. So I would cover for his 3 assistants when they were out sick or on vacation, that kind of thing. And then I went back to Paramount to work for the vice chairman for a very short stint. And then after that, I went back and was a full-time assistant for Katzenberg up through when he sold the studio to Universal. And it's been a very interesting time at the studios for sure.
What was the most useful skill you developed while working inside the studio systems and all that?
I would say so Katzenberg has a very, very regimented approach to how he operates, and he has some really tried and true like processes in how he manages his day. And I would say, without getting into specifics, that approach, that way of thinking, is probably one of my biggest takeaways from all of my
to regiment your day.
Just an approach on how you prioritize and how you keep track of things. He was an absolute master at that. Yeah, it was really crazy.
I'd have to imagine so, because at that level, right, regardless of whatever industry you're in, you're getting pulled in 70 different directions.
Yeah.
And so you have to have kind of an anchor of like, this is how I spend my morning, this is how I spend my evening, whatever, so that no matter what wacky direction you get pulled during the afternoon, it's like, hey, whatever it is, right? Like, I have dinner with my wife at 7:00 every night.
Yeah,
no exceptions.
Do you recall any of like what were some of his methods for staying on track?
Well, he was very. I was in charge of his Monday through Friday schedule, except for the evenings. Like, so dinners and evenings and weekends were handled by his office manager, the head assistant. But I managed Monday through Friday, typically breakfast through the end of the workday. And he just had a very specific approach to how meetings were scheduled and the amount of time that he would have, in between. He typically always had lunch offsite. So he would, for those that don't know, most people probably don't, but DreamWorks Animation is based in Glendale, and that's it's right where the 5 freeway and 134 cross, basically. But he would drive every single day, almost, for lunch to Beverly Hills and back. And
which is, again, if you don't live here, that's not a small feat
No.
to do in any kind of
If
reasonable
you get
time.
stuck in the wrong kind of traffic, that's 45 minutes.
No, exactly. But he somehow managed to do it very expeditiously. And I think one of the reasons that he did that is it actually gave him time in the car to catch up on phone calls, talk to, because we were on the phone with him the entire drive, both ways. And so he would do phone calls. He would go over, things that needed to be addressed, whether it was emails or, other situations. And so I would say that the thing with him is he didn't waste a minute of the day.
Yeah.
There wasn't any real downtime. I mean, that man is a workaholic to the nth degree.
Yeah.
And, and it was just, but yeah, he had certain things. Just one that sticks with me is he had a rule of thumb with when he would have a meal with someone, he would give everyone a 30-minute grace period. But if it was 31 minutes, he would get up and leave.
Yeah.
He just,
I mean, I'm with that.
Yeah,
That's a long time.
Yeah.
But in my brain, it's like 10 minutes.
I think 15 minutes is, but to be fair, like 31 minutes out the door.
Yeah.
I got things to do.
That's very gracious of him.
Yeah. But I think that's taken into account that, LA is insane when it comes to traffic. There's no guarantees. So, but yeah, so he just had a very, like I said, a regimented approach to how he worked his day and how he made use of time. And I could never measure up to that. There's no chance that I don't have the brain for it. I don't think most people do, because people need downtime. They need a break. Yeah. And he just didn't.
But at the same time, I feel like through your circumstances, you've also kind of learned how to prioritize your time.
Oh, yeah.
The way that you want it to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I definitely have a lot more of it. I'm on long-term disability. I'm effectively retired. Yeah. so I don't really have, much that I have to do other than I help Nancy with our business.
There you go. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it does afford me more time to pursue other things.
Yeah.
When I can, when I'm up for it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And speaking of time, it is about time that we need to wrap this thing up, as I am staring at 3 empty glasses here.
That is true, but we want to take a real quick moment. Tim, given your experience with your diagnosis and all that, I wanted to ask if you could share any tips for people to stay on top of being aware if they're having issues with any kind of cancer, like best practices as far as staying on top of this so you don't get surprised with this sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is being proactive from a health perspective. There's for people that aren't aware, we don't have the healthiest food here in the United States.
Absolutely not.
So it is a good idea to maybe try and find a balance between eating healthy and indulging. I wouldn't I wouldn't ever try to dissuade anyone from indulging in the things that they enjoy the most, but doing it all the time is probably not the best idea.
Sure.
And then I would say, there's kind of a general idea that you don't need to get, as an example, a colonoscopy until you're 50, but fuck that. I would say people should try to start getting that done a decade earlier than that. Like if by the time you're 40, do it proactively. If your doctor says you don't need to, say you want it and push them for it, because it's a really good idea to have that peace of mind to know that there isn't anything wrong with you. And, typically that kind of thing is covered by your health insurance. So there's really no reason not to do it. Otherwise, I would just say, try to be as mindful about your physicality and your health as you can. If something doesn't seem right, don't just think it's a fluke and that it's something that might go away. Treat it seriously.
Yeah.
More and more people today are getting diagnosed with cancer earlier in life. And it's a real issue. So, if anyone can avoid, the cancer becoming, stage 4 like I have it, if you can catch cancer earlier on, it's a much easier thing to manage and potentially cure.
Yeah.
So.
That's incredible. I mean, dude, and again, man, as I said earlier, but I truly mean it on a personal level. The strength and the calm that you have demonstrated through all this is absolutely inspiring. And I do hope that anybody listening can also draw from that strength as well. So thank you, dude, so much for taking the time to come down.
Absolutely.
Have a couple drinks with us and chit chat. And we'd love to have you back, man.
And thank you so much, Tim. It was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you both.
Thank you for sharing everything that you shared today.
All right, we're going to get out of here. And
this wonderful whiskey.
Yeah, thanks again, man. All right, well, we're going to get out of here. Please follow us wherever you can subscribe to podcasts. We're everywhere at this point, so.
Yeah, 2 Drink Maximum on Instagram. You can find us anywhere you stream your podcasts, available on Audible, Spotify, Google Play, everything and anything where you can listen to music. But thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a wonderful episode, and we will see you next time.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
So we always sign off the show with a hearty cheers, but on this particular episode, it did not feel particularly correct not to give the wonderful Tim Sexton the last word.
What you're about to hear is a letter that Tim wrote just a few very short days before he actually passed. It's incredibly powerful. It's incredibly potent, and we wanted to read it here so that you all could hear directly from Tim. So what follows is a very touching letter from Tim. Hi, everyone. This will be my last update. The cancer is unfortunately terribly aggressive, and there was no reasonable options to try to mitigate it in any way. So Nancy and I have made the decision this morning with the doctors that we will not continue treatment, and I will be going into hospice care. It's a very strange place to be in as I write this. So many emotions, so many things to consider and contemplate. But if I had to sum it all up, what an incredible life. I had a wonderful family, Mom, Pat, and Christina, and my maternal extended family, Hubers, were the best that anyone could ask for. As I grew into an adult and began the journey more on my own, I got to discover so many awesome aspects of life and traveled all over the country, most often to catch concerts. I got the opportunity to follow my dreams of working in the movie business, and I moved to LA. Would have been 20 years this September. And I didn't have to do it alone. I had my dog Foley and my best buddy Christian Feldeke, who moved out with me. We met our amazing friend and roommate Kim Offenberg, and the three of us had an absolute blast for those first few years. I worked at DreamWorks Animation, Paramount Pictures, and Warner Brothers for some of the best bosses. Thanks to Kelly Avery, Jeffrey Katzenberg, Veronica Kwan Vanderberg, and JP Richards for always believing in me, encouraging me, making me better, and supporting me over the almost 16 years in the studio system. I met so many fantastic people along the way, including my monthly whiskey tasting group, the Bastard Scotch Society. I had so much fun drinking whiskey, talking movies, nerding out, and sharing in so much with Rob, Bache, Andrew, Adam, Jay, and Shane. Honorable mentions to Ben and Adam Barker. I got the chance to co-produce the documentary, The Water of Life, about single malt Scotch whiskey, and I'm so proud of what Greg, the director, created and all the rest of the team for their camaraderie along the way. But besides all those fun highlights, my life for the past 14 years has been an absolute joy with my incredible wife, Nancy. Those of you who know her know that I got really lucky. Not only is she one of the most talented, smart, funny, and sexy women I've ever met, but she and I clicked in a way that couples so rarely do. We traveled the world, visited incredible destinations, and we always aimed to have as much fun possible in any situation. I will miss all of you and the things that cancer has stopped me from experiencing. But I hope it's evident from what I've shared that I did get an amazing life these past 44 years. Please try to make the most of your time. It is so precious. Prioritize connection and love. Avoid those who would aim to add negativity to your life, and travel the world. Sending out big hugs and lots of love. All my best, Tim.